Well, I got a 5-year sentence. I did 34 months. And once I got out, I was trying to find work and stuff, but it was hard. The only thing really you could find was unskilled labor, right? And then that's when I got into the truck school. And I've been doing it for 8 months now.
Eric Clark is from Sabrani Park in Oakland, home to the Sabrani gang, which is known for dealing heroin. In and out of prison for the past 25 years, Eric's off parole for the first time.
Yeah, it's a lot of freedom. It's a good feeling also, to tell you the truth, right? Because I feel like ain't nowhere I can't go now, right? As opposed to being on that yard, you only can go so far, right?
Now, he's driving trucks across country and is out on the road for weeks at a time. He sees his 2 kids in Oakland when he's in town, and his son who's in college in Atlanta when he's passing through. Because of the high rate of accidents, the job is dangerous, so Eric prays at truck stop chapels and keeps a Bible by the bed in his cab. He also keeps an album of photos of his friends and family, a lot of them doing the gang's hand signal 11-5, which is the penal code for dealing heroin.
That's the neighborhood. Everybody out here knows what it means. Yeah, I lost a lot of people. I say, if you count 10, every 10, I might have lost 6 out of 10. I mean, not everybody did. Some of them doing time, right? But most of them got killed. Didn't nobody have a happy ending to their story except for me. Really. I'm the only one with a happy ending.
Now, people in the neighborhood look up to Eric for getting out of the gang and moving on to something else.
Finally get to see the truck.
Some have even followed in his footsteps to the Port of Oakland, where Eric learned his new trade at the Academy of Truck Driving. A national trucker shortage has companies recruiting heavily for drivers and owner-operators, opening up opportunities for women, husband and wife teams, immigrants, and parolees. James Kemp, director of the Academy of Truck Driving, has been in the business for 20 years.
The amount of students that we currently graduate every month represents just a small portion of what the industry actually needs.
Mr. Kemp is actively recruiting students at Parole meetings in Oakland.
About 85% of those parolees got their license and turned their lives around. We lost a small percentage of those back to the revolving doors again, but the majority of them, and I still hear from time to time, have done well.
Getting started in the program isn't easy. There are hurdles to getting funding, and the program is rigorous. But the struggle is worth it because many truck companies who say they won't hire truckers with a criminal record do hire from this school. Case manager Vickie Osorio helps by writing letters to vouch for parolees.
What's your name, sweetie?
My name is Javis Mack.
Javis. It says, please, I write it to your courts and I write it to the district attorney's office. It says, please release the temporary suspension on Jarvis's license. If he enters the program, he'll be able to get a job and he has full intentions of paying his debt to, district attorney's office. The trucking industries, they're aware that the candidates they're going to get may have questionable backgrounds. And because of the high demand in the trucking industry, they're more needy, so they do need to accept parolees because they have so much gaps to fill.
Oops! You got in a little deep. Come look at it. Set the brake. Come look.
For now, students can get funding from vocational agencies like Oakland Private Industry Council and the State Department of Rehabilitation. Then, the Academy trains them for a month, in the classroom and on the road.
Being caught in mid-turn by traffic conditions leaves you a sitting duck for a preventable accident.
I train a lot of students, male, female, many of them immigrants with language barriers to overcome. And I take it as a source of pride to say that they are out supporting their families driving trucks. So when they pass, I feel like a proud father. I have many students who, when they was in the street life, they was in the street life. And when they desire to get out of that life, You know, they got out of it. I had a female student, never worked a job before in her life, prison time, drugs, and you couldn't give her drugs now. I think a lot of guys feel like they ought to be able to drive a truck anyway. They've been playing with trucks all of their life. You know, trucks are a part of most young boys' life. If you buy your own truck as a young man, this is important for a young black man. If you get your own truck, you never have to go to anyone and beg for a job again.
Because it does get discouraging out there when people are turning you down and you're already on a short stick. Because once you're released from prison, you only got $200, you know, that they give you. And I've seen how crime and drugs, for example, you know, have taken over our community. I'll do whatever I have to, whatever I can, to help those pull them up by the bootstraps.
As for Eric, he's headed to LA and then across country.
And I like it. You see, trucking really is more than a job. Long-haul trucking is like a way of life, you know what I mean? I think it gives me a lot of freedom, you know, being out here by myself, getting the job done. Yeah, it's kind of like being a modern-day cowboy, you know? Instead of riding a horse, I ride a truck.
My hometown, La Grande, Oregon, is known for its scenic beauty and friendly people. I moved away when I was 18, but my best friend Rocky LaCarica chose to stay, become a nurse, and raise her family here.
I can drive 20 minutes out my back door and go hiking, hunting, fishing, you know, live off the land. It's the lack of stress and worry about the everyday things and the crime and everything that you have to worry about in a city.
But there's a problem here that touches nearly every family and every individual. Oregon treats more methamphetamine addicts than any other state. Tom Blackman is on the drug task force.
I've seen religious people who are in the church do it. I've seen people who own businesses do methamphetamines here. I've arrested valedictorians of high school classes. It's everywhere.
When Johnny, my cousin, was using, I didn't feel safe around him. You know, it's so hard to maintain that love for them when they're constantly deceiving you.
I can't say I'm not going to get high. I can't tell my family that, and that sucks.
Even the people who work to slow the epidemic are suffering on a personal level. Cedric Shanks is a parole director who takes a hard line against users. He had his son Christopher arrested for possession of meth when he was 17.
I'm going to do my job too, although I'm a parent, and I also know that the best thing for him is for him to be caught and for him to be held accountable.
Kathy McDowell is a social worker who helps meth addicts get their lives together. Her son JD was arrested on distribution charges in November for the third time.
It's a very gut-wrenching experience to know how we fight it so hard in our state system, and to know that I have a son that's part of that was devastating as a mom.
It can't be easier for her to go to work, you know, with her son's name plastered in the paper with a bunch of felonies attached to it. My current girlfriend has a baby, and when our house got busted, she wound up losing her kid to the state as well.
It's ruined my life. I don't have my daughter, I don't have my family, my car, my money, my home.
Kathy told us later that she was at least partially responsible for the bust on Jill and JD's apartment.
They had had a fight and he was leaving, and she went to look for him and left the child alone in the apartment just to find him. No, it can't be that way.
It's families who suffer the most. Candy Nafziger is a caseworker for Child Protective Services. She says 12 of the 15 children they've placed in foster care in the past 6 months have been exposed to meth at home. It takes a toll on her personally.
You walk into a home and you see the girl that was sat next to you in math class, and she's a meth addict, and you're taking away her children. meth has had by far the largest impact on the child welfare system and child abuse and neglect, more so than any other drug, alcohol, mental illness, anything we've encountered.
You don't value your children, you don't value your life, you just don't care.
Like most dealers, Jill used meth as currency, even to pay the babysitter so she would have more energy to care for her 2-year-old, Brooklyn.
If I didn't give it to her one day, she wouldn't be pissed and she wouldn't not babysit because she got high with us every day for free anyway. But I would usually try to give them something, trying to be a good parent. So stupid.
The state placed Brooklyn with Jill's parents. Jill has to take drug classes and find a safe place to live to get her back, but it hasn't been easy.
Every application, have you been convicted or charged with a felony? Yes. Immediately everyone's like, nope, sorry, everywhere.
Candy's sister and cousin are recovered meth addicts, and she met her husband Dave on a meth warrant.
I was taking babies out of this meth home, and he came around the corner and was in his SWAT team gear, search warrant gear, and hit it off right away.
Dave Nafziger has been dismantling meth labs for 15 years.
Meth is the biggest problem that we have in Oregon and the West Coast.
Although most meth comes from Mexico and California, rural Oregon offers plenty of places to hide meth labs and plenty of access to a key ingredient of meth, fertilizer. The other chemicals in meth are available across the counter in things like cold tablets.
For $75 worth of equipment that we have here, you could make about 1.5 ounces of meth. So, street value would be it's about $1,200 an ounce if you sell it by the ounce.
Although the neighboring county has received federal money to fight meth addiction, this county still suffers from a shortage of police and a faltering economy.
I want life, I want people, I want opportunities, and there's none of that here.
That's a cop-out, that's an excuse. There's a lot that can do. When I was growing up, my parents found things for us to do.
But here in La Grande, drugs are a recreation for too many people. They use meth to enhance their performance in school, sports, and at work.
Very intelligent kids in school used to be able to study and to keep up on their studies and to be productive.
And it makes women think that, they can be the best moms in the world. They can get the house clean and have dinner and take care of the kids, and it's no problem.
The attraction of meth is undeniable.
I didn't stick a needle in my arm 5,000 times because it didn't feel good. I stuck it there because it felt great. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It took me to a whole nother world.
Deb Schreiner has served prison terms for methamphetamine in 3 states and says he is in recovery.
I figured out I hit that spot like fucking 1,800 times in 2 months.
Meth can damage the brain permanently. Addicts often have trouble focusing.
But I was going with that somewhere. Oh, the priors of methamphetamine. People become loyal to the sack, to the dope. They're soldiers for that shit like no other drug.
Meth is a sexual drug. Where you find meth, you'll find porn, guaranteed.
You start at like 11 at night, and all of a sudden it's like 8 in the morning, and it doesn't even feel like it, but there's no love, there's no like kissing or tenderness.
Am I gonna fix the window? Am I gonna fucking put in a new wood stove? Should I shampoo the carpets? Maybe make some lunch? Go get in the truck, fucking drive to the fucking lumber store, buy some shit, decide you want some CDs. And then, at the end of the day, you got all this shit, and it's like, the fuck they get that for?
You'll see like a car engine in the kitchen, or sometimes they've poached deer and are cleaning them out in the living room. Just really bizarre behavior.
A third of La Grande's inmates are serving time for meth-related charges, and Oregon has 6 times the national average of addicts in recovery programs. But families and police say there should be more focus on treatment rather than jail time.
Out of 500 people that I've interviewed or dealt with, I'd probably say that there's 1 or 2 that have stayed clean off of meth.
Last year, Oregon became the first state to require prescriptions for most over-the-counter cold medicines used to cook meth. The sheriff says the legislation has cut lab seizures in half, but parents here still feel lucky if their kids can stay clean.
Christopher's very, very intelligent.
Oh, he's so smart.
Oh, very intelligent. And it's such a shame to see the thinking about that possibly going to waste. He can stop if he so chooses. It's totally up to him.
JD faces federal prison time. He was baptized in jail and hopes to become a minister when he gets out.
Actually, it was an answer to my prayer for when this finally came to a head. I mean, I knew it was coming. It had to, you know, because God loves JD that much. So it had to come.
I want to be like a good mom now. I want to definitely go back to school.
I feel blessed for it, actually, because I don't think without such a mountain to try to get over, I'd have never, you know, stopped to look up.
Just over a year ago, in a quiet South Berkeley neighborhood, 2 graduate students moved into an apartment complex. Heather and Rebecca thought they had found the perfect place to unwind after school, but one day about 6 months ago, their quiet solitude would change. As Heather was taking out the trash, she was approached by a well-dressed gentleman. He engaged her in conversation and offered her some Christian literature, which she politely accepted. She thought that would be it.
But he asked me which apartment I lived in, and I didn't feel comfortable answering that question, so he just decided to linger outside and watch me until I walked in here.
He calls himself Brother Michael. He calls her Sister Heather. His literature is the Watchtower magazine, delivered in person by his fellow Jehovah's Witnesses every weekend.
He came once and asked for Heather, and she was in her room, but I lied and said that she wasn't here. And he didn't believe me. And then they lingered outside the door, and I heard them whispering, "Someone else is in there."
I was hiding. I seriously felt like they could hear my heart beating or something.
We all get visited by Jehovah's Witnesses every once in a while, but every weekend for 6 months, Heather and Rebecca couldn't figure it out. So we went to ask the witnesses themselves. That was harder than we expected. All of the Kingdom Halls in the Bay Area are surrounded by tall gates. Knocking on their doors is impossible. So we went online. It's there that we found an unexpected source of information. In cities around the world, there are support groups of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. We found 2 members of a local group who are more than willing to guess what it is about Heather that keeps Brother Michael knocking.
Was she friendly?
She's a little friendly.
That's it. It's like, you know, the dog, if you pet him, he'll follow you everywhere. Basically, she was too friendly.
Good friends, Wayne and Yolanda, weren't recruited at the door. They were born into the Jehovah's Witnesses. But they did spend years going door to door, and they say it's part religious calling and part sales technique.
We had like thorough training on how to talk to people when you go to the door. So when they come up with objections or they're, you know, I'm not interested, we were taught very well on how to get around it and keep talking. And that's what Brother Michael's doing.
But Brother Michael and his fellow pioneers, as they're called, are doing other things as well. Rebecca decided not to answer the door on Saturdays anymore. And one morning, they knocked for a while and then started peering through the window as she lay on the couch.
So I finally just went into my room, and they stayed, I swear, for like 5 minutes.
Is there pressure?
Yes.
Heck yeah.
Yes. It's a requirement to go out and the door-to-door work. When the circuit overseer comes around visiting the congregations, they go over all of these slips and all the records of each member of the congregation and how to get people's hours up in service.
As luck would have it, the circuit overseer was coming through Berkeley on a recent Sunday. We dropped by before his service.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have time right now.
He took our questions with him so that he could think them over.
Hey, how are you?
A few hours later, after the service, he met us outside. After some thought, he decided not to do the interview, but he did offer us some magazines. He thought those might answer some of our questions. It was the same magazines that Brother Michael had been leaving on Heather's doorstep for months.
Thank you. I hate to put you off.
It's okay. Thanks. It was nice to meet you.
Okay, same here.
All right.
Same here.
Take care.
Bye.
The literature is put out by the Watchtower Society, based in New York. It contains the basic beliefs of 6 million Jehovah's Witnesses around the world, but it's the more specific interpretations of history that led Wayne to look beyond the gates.
I went on this mission, personal mission, to vindicate the Watchtower Society's teachings. Eventually it led to me deciding that the Watchtower was wrong on certain teachings. My wife turned me in to the elders.
Wayne faced what's called disfellowship, a practice whose rules we didn't find mentioned in our Watchtower magazines. He was asked to leave the church, and other Jehovah's Witnesses were forbidden from having a relationship with him, including his now ex-wife. It's known as shunning, and Yolanda faced a similar fate when her husband decided that he didn't believe anymore.
The minute that he decided that, my whole family we were shunned. And so down to my children, their little friends who used to be their friends no longer could be their friends, and that was very eye-opening to me.
With their eyes wide open, Yolanda and Wayne both decided to leave the church. And while they stand by that decision, to other Jehovah's Witnesses, they'll always be viewed as shunned.
My sisters and my brothers and everything, I don't have much contact with them, so.
Yeah. I haven't talked to my older sister in 6 years.
So there's a reason people stay in. When it's your whole world, it's very hard to be out.
Now that we've seen what it's like to be out, we still wanted to know what it's like to stay in. With the gates unlocked for services, we found Brother Michael at this Kingdom Hall in North Oakland. He was happy to have someone seek him out. He even gave me his card. But when I asked for an interview, he said I'd have to speak to the elders. The elders, in turn, said I would have to get permission from New York. After weeks of calls and runaround, still no permission. Why would the Jehovah's Witnesses pass up this opportunity to get their message out?
They want good publicity. Most journalists won't give them good publicity. So over the years, they become very fearful of doing interviews.
I was beginning to feel a little shunned myself. Then I noticed the card Brother Michael gave me had his home address on it. I couldn't resist.
Hey, Brother Michael, I tried to call you, I couldn't get through. On Wednesday?
He had a gate on his door, just like at the Kingdom Halls, and he wasn't going to open it for me.
All right, thank you. Thank you, sorry to bother you.
Unlike Brother Michael, I gave up after this one try, but my curiosity may have had another effect. Heather says that Brother Michael hasn't been back to her house in over a month. She says she finally got stern with him.
I told him, look, you're wasting my time, and he just smiled at me, shook my hand, and said that I was a good person, and thanks for my time.
So in the end, Heather and Rebecca got their Saturdays back, and the Jehovah's Witnesses finally got a little good publicity.
Are we alone? I think it's highly probable that we are not.
Mike Davis is an astronomer who believes in aliens. That's why he's so excited about this new radio telescope under construction in a far corner of Northern California near a tiny town called Hat Creek.
You only know about Hat Creek if you're a radio astronomer or a fly fisherman. Mount Lassen, 26 miles to the south. Mount Shasta is about 55 miles to the northwest.
Here in the Southern Cascades, the cell phone coverage is really spotty. You can barely get a station in on your FM radio, and the TV picture is all snow. But that's what makes this valley just perfect for astronomers when they want to listen in to signals from the stars.
Hat Creek Observatory is owned and operated by UC Berkeley's astronomy department, but this new telescope belongs to the SETI Institute. SETI as in Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence.
How many dishes are up so far?
We've got about 30 now, And we'll have 42 by the summer, and then 350. We tried to be clever. We use as much commercial off-the-shelf equipment as we can that goes together in half a day. I love it. It's so elegant. It's spare, precise, and still very inexpensive.
Altogether, the antennas make up a powerful telescope with a wide field of view. While traditional optical telescopes collect light from faraway stars, these telescopes gather radio and microwaves. Then supercomputers analyze the data to identify signals against the background noise of the universe. For 25 years, Davis ran Cornell's Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. Then the SETI Institute recruited him and convinced his wife to move here to build this telescope.
Where I help the most is to make sure that people understand this is a serious scientific research enterprise.
Gravitas.
It meets the...
Up until now, SETI has had to borrow time on other telescopes to listen for signals from far corners of the galaxy. Now, with their own super powerful telescope, SETI's computers can scan the skies at the same time as Berkeley astronomers like Rick Forster conduct more traditional astronomical surveys.
It's going to be the most sensitive thing for conventional radio astronomy that there is on the planet. It will be the fastest for survey work. Its potential for discovering new things is enormous.
Astronomers have been looking for extraterrestrial life for several decades now. So far, ET has not phoned. But this new telescope array will speed up the search.
We speed it up by 200 or 300 times what we've been doing in the past, and hopefully that will mean that we're closer to a successful result.
It's a huge step, especially considering that it was only 13 years ago that NASA pulled the plug on all federal funding for SETI research.
There was a golden opportunity for a senator to make a point after a long afternoon of rancorous debate, and he said, well, there's one place we can save money, and that's on these little green men.
Congress resumed funding SETI 5 years ago, but the Institute was already looking for money elsewhere.
As with any search and discovery expedition, you go to the Queen of Spain and ask Isabella for the money.
In this case, the generous monarch turned out to be Microsoft billionaire Paul Allen. He donated $25 million, almost half the cost of the project. That's why it's called the Allen Telescope Array. With a $100 donation, you can get your name on a dish, too. Regular folks can join Team SETI for $35.
The Allen Telescope Array is going to be the first time that the private fundraising has enabled not only a SETI project, but a radio astronomy first-rate instrument.
So, are we alone? Being good scientists, these astronomers won't speculate.
But I know for sure that if we don't search, we won't find an answer. And therefore, I think it's worth doing the experiment. I mean, the answer may be we are alone.
If we're it, if this is all there really is, we'd better dance harder.
That's all there is, my friend. The Davises say the search for alien civilizations should remind us to take better care of our planet and each other, whether we're alone or not.
The 10th telescope.
Yeah.
Cheers.
All right.
I've got a lot more left.
If that's all